What is going on, live streamers? Today, I'm going to be sharing with you 7 tips that are going to help you grow your live streams. Now, the things I'm going to be talking about are things that live streamers typically ignore because, they have, some preconceived ideas about what they should be doing in their live streams. But what I'm going to be sharing with you today is information about the core of your live stream that, of course, you need to get together in order to, make everything memorable and things like that. But in addition to that, I'm also going to be letting you know as one of our first talking points, as you can probably see from the thumbnail if you're coming in on the replay, one of our talking points today is about a new feature that YouTube is rolling out that you can also leverage as a live streamer. So if you are somebody that live streams on a regular basis, and especially if you do longer live streams, then in that particular case, this very first one, because we're going to jump right into it, this very first one is something that you should consider. So YouTube is currently rolling out a feature for podcasting onto YouTube. Now, with this, one of the advantages that you have as a live streamer is if you are not somebody that is showing things on your live stream, like if you're like a crafter, for example, then it's a little bit different to where, if somebody would need to see what it is that you're doing, then in that case, it's different. But if you are sharing informational type content, this very first tip is for you. So when this feature is fully rolled out across the platform, one of the really cool things about this is YouTube is putting some priority on podcasts on YouTube because they're trying to take up, they're trying to tap into that market as well. Now, if you interact with YouTube at all and you also watch anybody that podcasts, then in that case, it's likely that you've also seen a lot of clips and things like that from people that podcast that also try to direct you back to their content, which is a win and something that you should consider. But the thing that I really want you to think about is when it comes to your live streams with this new feature that they're rolling out, and again, this is for everybody that's live streaming to YouTube. With this feature, as it's rolling out, one of the things that you want to make sure that you're thinking about is, with my live stream, how could I format it in a way to where it would be great on the live experience, but then I could also package it up as a podcast within YouTube without having to do any additional work outside of just selecting a playlist that it goes into? If you could format your live stream in that way, then it's going to help you when it comes to distribution, and this is how. So with this particular feature that they're rolling out, one of the things that you can do is you can create a playlist, right? You can create a playlist on your YouTube channel, and within that playlist, you can add your live streams into that playlist, and then you can set it as a podcast. When you set it as a podcast, it gives you different controls. So for example, instead of uploading like a 16:9 thumbnail or just, having one of the videos in the playlist as the thumbnail, you have to have a piece of, custom square artwork, so that when you have it as a podcast, it also can show up on the other podcasting platforms as well in the way that they prefer it. So the thing that I'm getting at here when it comes to leveraging this new podcasting feature on YouTube for your live streams is if you are sharing anything that's informational, what you can do is you can have one playlist that is that podcast, and then that gives you the opportunity to show up on YouTube just in general when people are looking for what it is that you make in the first place. So you have discovery there. When people are searching for it, you also have discovery in terms of YouTube recommending your content to people on the home pages, suggesting it next to other videos and so on. Then you're going to have the option to get that content to show up in YouTube podcasts, and you're going to get the option for that to show up in YouTube Music as well. And another exciting thing about this particular feature, before we start moving on to the next tips, is that they are also going to be, it's not in place yet, but they're going to be introducing an RSS feed to this as well, which then gives you the capability to take the live streams that you have on YouTube, copy your RSS feed, submit it to all of the major podcasting platforms, and then the efforts that you're putting into your YouTube live stream will then be distributed all through all of the other podcasting platforms as well. You have to go through a manual process to do that, but once you do that, when you publish your live stream to YouTube, then it's going to get treated like a podcast and a video, which is a win. And then it's also going to get that extra distribution across the other podcast platforms as well. So if you're a live streamer, there's tons, like Jerry says right here in the chat, there's tons of opportunity for you here to get extra distribution with the efforts that you're already putting in with no additional work outside of originally setting up the playlist as a podcast, having the artwork and putting it in there. But from that point, once you have that set up, all you have to do is just select it when you are finished with that live stream, or, as you're setting everything up, all you have to do is add it to a playlist, and then it will, start getting some of those features in play. Now, keep in mind, this is something that they're currently rolling out. They're currently testing it all in the States, or deploying it first in the States. And then the RSS feeds are not currently available, but that is something that they do have on the way. So, this is an opportunity that you can tap into to just get more activity around your live stream. So this first tip isn't for the live experience. This is for stuff that you can do with your live streams once it's complete to get more attention to it after the fact, which brings us to a lot of your live stream. This is the second tip right here. A lot of your live stream views are typically going to come from the replay. So if you have a live stream, of course, the live stream experience is, that's where it's at. That's where you have the most fun. That's where, your viewers get to interact the most and things like that. But people do interact with live streams on the replay. So because of that, it's really important to make sure that when your live streams are complete, that you do post optimize those live streams, which means go back in, update the thumbnail if you need to, update the title if you need to. And of course, you want to make sure that you're formatting the live stream itself for the replay value, so that you are kind of double dipping to where it's like, hey, I'm making this cool for the live stream experience, but I'm also going to do some things at the beginning of that live stream in terms of adding a hook to it, so that maybe some live stream viewers won't even see that because they're coming in, once the stream starts. But those people that are going to get that hook, they're going to be watching it on the replay. So you want to make sure that the very first things that you say or show when you are opening your live stream, you want to make sure that those are compelling, so that as people are coming in on the live stream, it's clear to them what it is that they're getting and why it is that they should stick around. Okay. And when you are considering this in terms of the structure of your live stream, keep in mind that when you are optimizing for the replay, that it can come down to structural things. So for example, like if you are opening your live stream in a certain way, then in that particular case, you might need to rearrange certain things in order to, kind of front load that hook, so that when people are coming in on the live or on the replay, that it makes more sense for them without them having to come in and start seeing like flashy logos and things like that, and then leave because they're not getting what they expected when they actually clicked on that thumbnail and title. That's the idea. And then the next tip that we have here is when your live streams are complete. This actually is still part of the number 2 tip, by the way, but when your live streams are complete, another thing to think about in terms of just the general formatting, right? So if you are not going to do the podcast option with your live streams, another thing that you can think about when it comes to just getting more activity in general is putting together live streams that are just like what it is that you normally do if you typically do longer live streams, but then also trying to find something that you can supplement with like a shorter type of live stream. And the reason that you want to do this is, of course, you can repurpose all of the content that you made in your longer live stream. That's perfectly fine. Or if you could still do that, but then you have a shorter live stream that doesn't require as much commitment from new viewers that are not already familiar with you. So for example, let's say you live stream for an hour like we're going to be doing today. Well, if you live stream for that hour, people that are already familiar with maybe the brand, like in this case with StreamYard, or people that are familiar with me, they know that, when they come in here that, they're going to get some type of value out of what it is that they're experiencing here. However, it's also important to make sure that you are adding content that is easy to consume for people that are not willing to commit to an hour, or for people that just don't have that hour to spare, because sometimes people will just consume content, in their downtime, or they're waiting for people while they're in the bathroom, while they're, just kind of, killing time here and there, things like that. So that shorter live stream would give you the option to be able to pull those people in and introduce them to what it is that you're doing, so that hopefully you'll be able to garner, their viewership on a regular basis, at least from the short form content. And then when they have time, if they get to know, like, and trust you, then in that case, then, they will participate in your longer forms as well. So the idea there is content strategy, right? Thinking, I'm going to make this, and then we're going to, the longer form, and we're going to repurpose some stuff out of here. And then we're going to have, one piece of shorter form content that we also put out that's also done live, but it's much shorter. Let's say it's like a 10-minute, live stream where you just share a bunch of things or show a bunch of things related to the types of things that you do in your live streams. Now, I do understand that, some people, like in the StreamYard Facebook group, I see lots of people posting things like, hey, we're live streaming this event. In that particular case, that doesn't apply to you guys. What I'm talking about is people that are regularly streaming, on a regular basis. They're content creators. They're putting content out for whatever reason, if it's bringing attention to your brand or if it's promoting something or if it's just, connecting with your community or playing games or anything like that. Those are the people that, that I'm mostly talking to here in this particular example. But the next thing that is super important when it comes to live streams is consistency. So when you are putting your live streams together and you are thinking like, okay, I'm gonna start doing live streams now, and I want to grow my brand on the internet, leveraging live streams to do it, then in that particular case, what you want to start thinking about is, okay, where in my schedule can I comfortably live stream on a regular basis, almost without fail? And when you start thinking in that way, then that allows you to find those places to where you can schedule it, and then you can commit to live streaming on that particular day at that particular time every week or bi-weekly or monthly, depending on what it is that you're doing. But when you do it that way, that consistency makes it to where people can expect you to go live. So if they have free time, then they can, oh yeah, that's right, they're going live today. Let me go hang out over there. Or you also, by doing that, when you are consistently streaming at the same time, you're also tapping into that group of people that are typically around or that are typically on YouTube while you are going live, or really any social platform. You're tapping into those people that have that time during that particular time. Those are the people that are going to be hanging out and participating in what it is that you're doing. So if you can be consistent in terms of days and times, and cadence, how many times per week or how many times per month, things like that, then it gives your viewers the opportunity to schedule their time to show up for that, or at least know that you're there in the event that they do have that time, right? And in some cases, depending on the type of content that you make and things like that, in some cases, people will show up and they'll be waiting for you to live stream. And if you don't stream, you'll get, messages about it, DMs about it, emails about it, and people will be like, hey, you streaming today? You streaming today? Like, what's going on? Because that consistency gets so rigid that when you don't live stream, it becomes awkward. Right. So because of that, that consistency can make a really, really big difference when it comes to just growing your brand online in general. But when it comes to consistency, you have a few different variations of consistency as well that will help you grow your brand through live streaming. So the first is showing up at the day, the same days and times, on a regular basis when you live stream so people can expect it. Next, and by the way, if you have any questions, I just want to let you know, if you have any questions about any of the things that I talk about or anything related to, growing a YouTube channel, once we go into the Q&A portion of this stream, make sure you're reserving those. So when we go into the Q&A portion, so we can get those answered for you here today on the stream. But what you want to think about is consistency in terms of days and times, but you also want to think about consistency in your target audience. And what that means is making sure that you are consistently putting out content that is directed towards the group of people that you are trying to reach and connect with. Because when you start breaking that, then it also starts fragmenting what it is that you're doing. It starts changing who YouTube recommends your content to and those sorts of things. So because of that, it's really important to ensure that every piece of content, or almost every piece of content that you put out on your YouTube channel, be it video content or live streams or podcasts now or shorts or anything, that it's all targeted towards the same group of people. And if you can do that, that will help the YouTube's system, their algorithms, that'll help them quickly learn the people that do and do not respond to what it is that you're doing, which will then in turn help your channel grow faster than it would have otherwise. And the next thing, of course, is consistency in branding. So when it comes to, branding, being consistent in terms of, what it is that you're offering, what it is that you stand for, the things that you like, don't like, all of that, just your main, core messages, all of that is really important. Colors, things like that are kind of important, but things that are even more important are things that are memorable, which brings us to our next tip. So when it comes to branding, naming your show, can make a really big difference in terms of just helping people remember the show and helping people remember you. When you name it something, then it just gives people that you're like, oh, this is what it is, right? This is what it is. This is that show. And by doing that, that just makes it easier for people to remember. So then they have your name for the people that remember your name. They have your YouTube channel for the people that will remember your channel. And then they have your show name for the people that will remember the show. That will make it easier for people to find you based on just how their brains work and, how they remember things. So for example, I'm really bad with names. It's something that I continually, it's continually a work in progress to fix. And I'm bad with names, but some YouTube channels I remember easily just because it's a memorable name, right? It's easier than like, John Smith. It's, like Square Table Degenerates, for example, who was in the stream earlier. Like in that particular case, it's like a, easy to remember name. So because of that, my brain will go to channel names and in some cases show names as well. So when you're thinking of your branding and you are thinking of, your show name, just make it something that is, it doesn't even have to be that memorable, but if you can make it memorable, then, it'll be helpful for you. But when it comes to your show name, make sure that it is easy to remember. Make sure you avoid the word for because it can cause complications because you have the number 4, you have, the spelled out version, FOUR, you have for, FOR, right? So then it's something that you would have to constantly explain. So because of that, just try to avoid, that and anything else that's confusing, like that to where people would have to explain it out. So any name that you do come up with for your show, just make sure that you say it out loud. That way, it can help you identify any problems that you might have when it comes to people recommending it to each other and, those sorts of things. So any name that you do come up with your show, just make sure that you are, kind of saying it out loud to make sure that it does come across, nice and clear. But when it comes to branding, other memorable things that you can do is, of course, your branded name, right? That's one thing. But branded audio is another thing. So for example, on my live stream that I do on Saturdays on my main YouTube channel, I have like all these different sound effects and things like that. And some of them are actually branded around the name of the show. So, like I have one button that I hit, I'll actually play it here.
If you're enjoying this.
Sorry, that's the wrong one.
Thanks for watching Nimin Live. Remember to check out our sponsor.
Right? So like I have that button in there and the whole thing is like, okay, so at the very beginning when the whole show starts, I'm like, welcome to Nimin Live, the #1 place on the internet to learn about YouTube, network with other content creators and have an awesome time doing it, right? So then the people that are hanging out and the people that come in on the replay, they hear it there. And then every now and then it might happen to be mentioned, during the stream, not often, but it might sometimes. And then at the end, then in that particular case, when I remember to hit that button, then that's one more opportunity to do that. And then I've also got, other things in here where I, have like our squad name, which is Niminati, to where I hit those and it'll, say those types of things as well. But the idea is that branded audio is also things that can stick in people's brains. So one of the things that I'm currently in the process of experimenting with, because I like to make music as a hobby. So one of the things that I'm currently experimenting with is, a lot of people have like, like be right back screens and stuff like that, which is great. And every live streamer should have a be right back screen, just in case you have to use the bathroom, something like that, which you can also brand, by the way. But one thing I'm experimenting with right now, and I won't say experimenting with, I'm more having fun with it, is I'm actually making like little songs about stuff. So I've got, one that I just put out about coffee. I have another one that I played, a long time ago. It's a thing that I made with a friend of mine that we had on YouTube. But the new one that I made, it's like a song about just getting more coffee. And I actually hyped StreamYard through the whole thing with this cup, actually. But but that particular thing, those are things that help people kind of remember what's going on. Because, when you have the names and then you can create some type of additional experience that just stacks onto everything, right? So then in that particular case, what I'm hoping is that people will be out in their day and, that song will pop into their head, or maybe they're going to get coffee and that song will pop in their head and they'll be like, oh yeah, need to hit the coffee maker, get another cup, right? So because of that, doing those types of things can also help you stand out when it comes to your branding. But it doesn't have to be, putting a song together, but, just little things, like your show name tags and, little things like that. And I also have like buttons that I hit if somebody does like a super chat. Everything is custom made. So, if somebody leaves a super chat, then I hit that button. It's got this like got this
super chat,
right? So, I've got that. I've got stuff for when members sign up, and it just makes it more of a memorable experience when those things happen. So next, is you also have, of course, colors. That is definitely part of branding. If you don't know how to put color schemes or anything like that together, Adobe has a tool for that. And you can also go to a website called coolers.co, I think it is. And on that website, it's free. And on that website, you can actually generate like different color schemes and things like that. And you also might want to, with AI, now that we have all of that, you might also want to consider, hopping onto like Midjourney or some other AI tool and just asking it, this is the value that I bring, to, from my live streams. What would be a good, color scheme, for my brand? What would be a good color, theme for my brand? And, just see what it comes up with and then put those colors in and just see if you agree and if you like them and things like that. And then technically you could run with that. So, so when it comes to, those types of things and the branding and all of that, there's a lot of things that you can do to just kind of help yourself stand out. And the reason those things are important, right? Because, when you hear this, you might think like, oh yeah, branding, of course. But like the reason that these things are important is because there's probably a lot of people making content like you. So because of that, these little tiny nuanced things that you can do to just kind of create those little pieces of separation from you and what everybody else offers, even if it's an audio tag, or even if it's like a certain way that you do something, like those are the types of things that will cause people to come and hang out with you compared to, the other options that they have for that, or at least, come back because they remember what it is and enjoy what it is that you're doing because you've put the extra effort into it. Next tip, titles and thumbnails matter almost more than the content. And the reason for that is because if people click and they stay for just a little bit when it comes to your live streams, if they click and they stay for a little bit, then in that particular case, the content will continue to get recommendations, right? So if people come in while you're live and they stay for a little bit, or on the replay, they come in, they watch it, for a decent amount of time and then they leave, then in that particular case, it's going to continue to get recommended on YouTube. However, if your title and your thumbnail are not good, then people aren't going to click on it. You're not going to get that data to show YouTube that people enjoy it. And in fact, if people are not clicking, then what's going to happen is your live stream is actually going to get demoted and the system's just going to end up promoting other things. So because of that, you want to make sure that you are putting together, good thumbnails and titles. And sometimes you'll nail it. Sometimes you won't. It's just part of the thing. But the idea is to just over time learn what your audience responds to and try to make sure that, you're making it clear that that is what your, live stream is about through the imagery that you're using. And when you're putting a title together, try to make it compelling. And here's the thing, like we're in a awesome place right now in terms of technology. So you have available like ChatGPT, it's currently free, to where you can go into there and give you some titles. TubeSpanner, for those of you familiar with TubeSpanner, like you can put your regular title in there, ask it to give you additional titles, and it's going to tell you more. TubeBuddy has titles, vidIQ has titles, like all of these different tools, they have, AI that can help you write better titles. So instead of writing a basic title and being like, hey, this is it, try just running it through some of those. Like for example, I used ChatGPT for the example I'm getting ready to share with you. And I said my actual prompt was make the title, and then I put in the title in quotes, and then I said more compelling. That was it. And this is what it did. So for example, how to make a cake, right? Basic title. The compelling version of that is Guide to Baking the Perfect Cake, right? Fortnite Let's Play live stream, right? For you gamers in the house. Epic Fortnite battles, watch me dominate, right? Way more compelling than Fortnite Let's Play live stream, right? Making a coffee table for, any woodworkers in the house. The ChatGPT version is making a unique, one-of-a-kind DIY coffee table. So it's like, in that particular case, like the unique suggests that it's something unique. And then of course the DIY suggests that it's something that they might be able to do also, right? So when it comes to writing your titles, like with the technology that we currently have, of course, trust, your intuition and your understanding of your audience and all of that, but running it through some of these tools that are available now is just one thing that can help you, ensure that you're making a nice, compelling title. So, again, by putting, the option in there, or just using, like TubeSpanner or TubeBuddy to, just use their like spinner to do it. You can also just do it with ChatGPT as well, just to ensure that you're putting out, more compelling titles, because compelling converts always, right? And if nobody's clicking on what it is that you're doing, then you're going to be like, down before you even get a chance to like get off the ground, right? So another thing is when it comes to your thumbnails, you also want to make sure that you are keeping your thumbnails simple. So it's really common for live streamers and just video content creators to way overcomplicate their thumbnails. The best thing you can do for yourself and for your audience is just think, how can I put this together with the least information possible and focus them on one specific idea, or literally focus their eyeballs on like one specific thing, right? And start thinking like, okay, if you can't do that, then okay, what's one thing that I could add to this to where it might help support this idea that I'm trying to express? And then you try to work from minimal and then just slowly add only the things that are required to make it more clear. Because if you're like, hey, I'm going to put like, all these letters and words and all these different things like all over the thumbnail, then what you're going to do is you're going to make it difficult to read. You're going to make it difficult to grab people's attention. You're going to make it just a mess, and people won't respond to it as well. So start with the bare minimum and then start building out from what's required when you start hitting walls. So for example, I got this picture of this thing, and this is where I'm going to start. And could this work on its own? Yeah, but if I added like an arrow or a circle or some words, maybe like a word to it with an arrow, something like that, would that make it even more, would that make it even better, right? And you want to roll, with that. So start with the least possible information and build out from there when it comes to your thumbnails. And then again, when it comes to your titles, you want to make sure those are clear and always lean on the side of compelling. Next, you want to consider repurposing your content. And the reason for this is because, we have all these different platforms now. I'm actually in the process of getting some of this stuff sorted as well right now, because this is something that, in transparency, I've also been sleeping on. So like I started a YouTube channel where I was putting clips from my live streams, and it was like growing well, all that good stuff. And then I just like stopped doing it. And I'm in the process of getting all that together again. But I can tell you, like on that particular channel, like I grew it over, it's like 7,000, something subscribers. And, those videos are still getting views, like they're still getting organic views on YouTube. And that's content, or those are views and viewers that I would not have been able to get in front of if I wasn't putting that additional content out from my live streams, right? So the same exact thing applies to, everybody hanging out here. You want to make sure that with all of these different platforms that we have, you want to make sure that, with the different formats that we have and things like that, that you are taking advantage of this to build your brand. Because when it comes to repurposing your content, that one short on YouTube could end up growing your audience. And then next time you go live, you're like, oh, hey, I got a lot more people in here, because now you've been in front of a lot more people, right? And then the other side of that is like anywhere you repurpose, you're just giving yourself the opportunity to grow your brand also in those places. And then it's your call, for those of you that are streaming to YouTube, it's your call if you want to point them back in the direction of your YouTube channel, or if you just want to grow your brand organically on those platforms, leveraging the content that you already made during your live stream, right? So when it comes to, building your brand online, you want to make sure that you are, considering that. And also like with the vertical content, because I know, there's a lot of people that just hate vertical content, or they hate short form content. It's like, I want it to be this way. But the fact is, we're like, this is where we're at, right? Like, vertical content is a part of, content now. So and it's like the fastest growing content that people are watching right now. So because of that, it's really important that you do consider leveraging it in order to bring attention to you and your live streams in the future, right? So you're kind of front loading that work of, repurposing some little clips from your live streams for the sake of, growing your live stream community over time. Another thing that you can do is YouTube has another feature that they put out. It's been a while now that they put it out, but it allows you to actually go in. You can go into your own live stream, and you can find a section of your live stream under 60 seconds, and you can sample it directly out of the live stream, and YouTube will turn it into a short. You can add a custom title to it. YouTube's going to turn it into a short, and then that short is going to have a link on it that will lead people right back into your live stream. They can click on that link and just go right into your live stream replay. So when you do those types of things, it helps, get you in front of more people and helps you grow your audience more quickly. Okay. So another thing, I just mentioned the remixing feature, but another thing to make sure that you are remembering as well when it comes to, growing your live stream audience is, parasocial relationships on the internet are a real thing. So a parasocial relationship, if you're not familiar with that, is like one-sided relationship. So this whole thing like originated, back in the day before YouTube was even a thing, but the idea of parasocial relationships actually originated from Hollywood. And the idea is that like actors and people like that, like the people that watch them, they are, they become like, they become like friends with the character that person plays. And then because of that, if they would see him out in the street or whatever, they would expect them to act in the way of the character. Sometimes they would address him as the character and so on. On YouTube, all of that is amplified because in Hollywood, we, watch other people do things, with each other, right? They have conversations with each other, and it's rare that they break, I think it's called the fourth wall or whatever, where they'll stop and they'll look at the camera. And when they do, it's such a big impact that we're like, whoa, right? It just makes you feel weird because you're just not used to seeing it in movies. But on YouTube and, everywhere else, you as a live streamer, you're always talking directly to your viewers. So even though there's going to be some people in your audience that you're going to get to know, right? Regulars and stuff, you're going to get to know them. But when it comes to, a lot of the people that you are interacting with, for people that might kind of stop in here, but then, you won't really like see them for a while, or maybe they're not even vocal, right? They're just hanging out in your chat. Those people are getting to know you and the nuances of you and things like that. And some of those people, and I can tell you this through, experience, like some of those people, if they see you in person, then in that particular case, like they feel like they know you like already, right? So because of that, you want to make sure that you are, not being too serious because, if you're a professional in any capacity, and I know a lot of, StreamYard users are also professionals. So if you're a professional, you might think like, hey, I gotta put on this, like, got to be professional here, but also kind of let that down just a little bit and let out the nuance of yourself, and don't be afraid to laugh, and just kind of relax a little bit, because those are the types of things that will help separate you from other people, because you're letting your personality out of the bag, right? And that's the stuff that people connect to. People aren't gonna like love your stuff just because you're showing them. I mean, they will, because you're showing them how to make a great coffee table if you're a woodworker, live streamer or something. It's not just because you're showing them how to make a great coffee table, but they also love seeing how you make that coffee table, right? For the people that are, continually engaging in what it is that you're doing. So because of that, just make sure that you do, let your personality out of the bag, and that you're not, so serious about it that you limit people's ability to connect with you, because that's that parasocial relationship is a real thing in the Hollywood world, and when it comes to what it is that we're doing on social media. So because of that, make sure you're letting your personality out of the bag. So what we're going to do now is we are going to do a Q&A. So the first part of this was, sharing that information on those 7 tips. So I hope that, you got some value from that. As a quick recap, and of course, for those of you that are participating now, if you came in late, no big deal. The things that we were talking about is, first, that podcasting is rolling out across YouTube. So that means that as a live streamer, if you do live streams that are long, then all you have to do is set up a playlist, mark that playlist as a podcast, add a square piece of artwork to that, so that it's just like a normal podcast. And then your live streams are going to get the capability to be shown on home pages, on suggested videos and everything else, just like they normally would on YouTube. But then you'll also have the opportunity to show up in podcasts. And then when they deploy their RSS feed, which they've publicly said that they're working on and that will be out soon, when they do that, then that's also going to allow you to distribute your live streams across all of the podcasting platforms as well. For those of you that do live streams about things, informational type stuff, kind of like I'm doing now. If you have to show people something, then in that particular case, it's not going to be the same. But if you are doing anything informational, then in that case, just consider podcasting. The next is making sure that you are optimizing, post-optimizing, possibly editing, and doing different formats for your replay viewers, because a lot of your views are going to come from your live stream replays. Consistency is super important through everything in terms of showing up at the same times and places. Targeting an audience consistently, consistency in branding, those types of things. Branding is important. I went into details about that. And of course, titles and thumbnails, went into details about that, and repurposing your content. And of course, leveraging parasocial relationships, or really just being yourself, so that people will connect with you better was the other thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to get into the Q&A, and all you have to do is just drop a Q in front of your question. And this is all free. Like, there's no super chats required or anything like that. Just drop a Q in front of your question, and we'll answer as many as we can. So let's see here. The very first one from Travel Discovery here says, are premiere videos a great idea? So premieres are, they can be good for getting people involved in that video if it's something that is premiere worthy. When people premiere videos all the time, then the premieres are less of a premiere and it's just a way that people publish videos. So because of that, if you want to really take advantage of premieres, only do a premiere if it's something that is premiere worthy, right? Like it's something that you don't normally do, something that you've hyped up over time and you're like, oh yeah, like, let's, like, hey, I got this thing coming, and then bam, you drop that, video or live stream. That's, or not the live stream because you can't premiere a live stream, but for the videos, that's where you'd want to do a premiere. Flow with Joe said, is the square like a thumbnail photo or just your logo like the normal podcast square? You can do anything you want. So like if you want to put the logo in the square, like you just have the square space that you work with, and then you can put your logo in there if you want. You can have like a full graphic done. Like for example, on mine, I have like a cutout of me and I'm like, let's just imagine the square starts like right here. I've got like a cutout of me over here. And then I've got like a graphic here, and then it has like the show name, and then underneath that show name it says learn about YouTube or whatever. So like I've made like an entire graphic out of it, so you can do that approach, or you can just put a logo if you want as well. So whichever one you're the most comfortable with, that's the way that you want to go. So we just got a surge of viewers. So for those of you that are just joining us, I do want to let you know that we are talking about things that you can do for your live streams to get better, growth and better attention, just grow your brand over time. But as part of that as well, because we just got this huge surge, so I just want to kind of recap some things as well. But I'm also just doing a Q&A right now, but I'm just going to recap here really quick. One thing specifically, and that one thing specifically is that YouTube is rolling out a podcasting feature across the platform. And since they're rolling that feature out across the platform, it's important to make sure that if you want to tap into it for traffic, that you are considering formatting your live streams, as long as the streams that you're doing are appropriate for it, that you're considering formatting them for the sake of getting into those podcasting features. So in order to create this, all you have to do is create a playlist, and then you can set that playlist as a podcast, and then you have to upload a square piece of artwork for it. And then your live streams, you can actually set them as the podcast, and then YouTube is going to treat them like a podcast plus a live stream, which is great. So people will come hang out in the live experience, and then after the live experience is over, then you get the normal replay stuff that you would normally get in terms of, YouTube recommending your content all over. And then in addition to that, you also have the other side of things, which is podcasting. And then they are also going to be rolling out an RSS feed. And since they're rolling out that RSS feed, that means that you're going to be able to just add, with one click of a button, to add your stream to a playlist. You're going to be able to add your podcast for every episode that you do to that playlist, which then is going to go into the RSS feed, which then you'll have to do a little bit of manual, signups and stuff first. But once all that's taken care of, then it's going to distribute your live stream across all the podcasting platforms as well, so that you can grow your live stream audience. Plus, you can also grow your audience of listeners as well elsewhere. So let's see here. So next up on our list, and again, for the Q&A part, if you do have a question, just make sure that you put a Q in front of it. That's how I identify that there's a question. So let's see here. So next up on our list here. So when should I put a merch shelf? I'm currently at 3,000 subs. As fast as you can. So one thing that I always recommend to people is, if you are trying to monetize through anything on YouTube, a lot of people will wait until they're in the YouTube partner program, or they'll just wait until they get a certain number of subscribers or something like that. But when you do that, you leave money on the table. So the idea to think about is, when you're publishing content to YouTube, either videos or live streams, when you're publishing that content to YouTube, one of the things that's happening is you are creating an archive of content. So since you're creating that archive of content, any video or live stream that you do not have some type of monetization attached to, either merch or affiliate links or anything of your own that you promote or anything like that, anything that you don't have available is content that isn't working for you on your behalf. I mean, sure, it could be working to grow your channel and those sorts of things, but you might have one person that will never see any of your other content interact with one of the videos that you're making now, that you could have had the opportunity to introduce them to something to where they might not ever experience your content again, and you might have missed that opportunity. So because of that, I always encourage new content creators to start thinking of how you're going to monetize and get something in place to start monetizing right away. And if you can do that and then just start adding different ways of monetization as you go along, then what's going to happen is as your YouTube channel grows, your income that you're making from the content that you're putting out is also going to grow along with it. The Power of Purpose says it's still worth uploading your podcast audio to podcast only platforms as well as YouTube. Currently, yes. But the thing is once they get the RSS feed and all that done with on the YouTube side, you might not have to. So if you already have like an established, show that you do, then in that case, right now I would definitely keep, uploading to that. But if you are, like starting something new and you're like, hey, I've got, or you have that and you upload content to that, but then you're like, hey, I want to do this thing on YouTube as well, then that will also give you another spot in the podcasting platforms in addition to the show that you currently have. So because of that, if you already have a show, go ahead and keep uploading it uploading to it like normal. But once YouTube gets all this stuff in place, you're going to get an RSS feed and you're going to be able to submit that to those platforms. And then it'll just pull directly from YouTube, which is pretty awesome. Just in terms of workflow, because I know, just like I'm sure you do, when you upload a podcast, you have to log in, because I use Captivate for that. So you have to log in, which is an amazing service, by the way. But you log in to that, and then you have to actually go to your show, and then you have to, upload your, your description in there. You have to add the title to it. You have to upload the episode, the deal. So, it just adds all that work. But once the RSS feed gets put into YouTube, then in that particular case, all you're going to have to do is fill that out on YouTube, and then everything should just transfer over from there. Let's see here. So I'm going to keep on going down the thing here. So if you are just joining us, I'm in the Q&A portion of the stream right now. So if you have a question, just make sure you put a Q in front of it. So Katia Mervell, I hope I'm saying that correctly. I apologize if not. Says, how can I do an intro and outro like yours, very similar to just starting out? So if you are just doing like an audio intro or an audio outro, then you can just have those made. So you can have those made on like Fiverr, or there's the company that I use for mine is Music Radio Creative. And then I've also had a friend of mine do some as well. His name's Travis MCP. He hangs out my live streams a lot. We know each other, but he has like a really good voice for that sort of thing. Like this, for example,
super chat.
Like that's him. But those services like Music Radio Creative, they do like all types of, audio intros, outros. They can do like little stingers, things like that for your live streams or your podcast, whatever you need. But when it comes to video intros and outros, in that particular case, what you want to think about, and this is going to be dependent on, like if you're just using it for a video, then in that case, you can make something in your video editing software already. You can do it, or you can have somebody, make it on, like Fiverr or Upwork or something like that. And then all you have to do is just drop it into your actual video itself. But keep in mind, when it comes to YouTube, when you're uploading video content, I don't recommend an intro. And even on the live streams, if you are expecting people to come in on the replay, I wouldn't have like a big long intro. And the reason for that is because you'll see in your audience retention reports, if you do that, when people come in on the replay, they'll just dive. Like they're like, people don't come on to YouTube. Just if you think of your own experience as well, I can imagine that you've never opened YouTube on your phone. You're sitting there, you're like, hey, I'm going to kill some time. Let me watch some YouTube videos. And the first thing in your mind is, man, I hope I see a good intro today. I hope some of these YouTubers that I'm watching, I hope I can see a good intro, right? So because of that, people will either skip them if it's clear, where they are, or they'll just abandon the video completely. So because of that, I recommend that you don't use intros, video intros. If you're doing it in a live stream, make sure that you put a hook first in terms of, hey, in today's stream, this is what we're going to be doing, that sort of thing, and then drop your intro, for the sake of, if you need to get the branding in there, but try to keep it extremely short. So for example, I have one that I'm considering adding to my live stream that I do on Saturdays. But the whole thing, I mean, it's like, 3 seconds long, but just as kind of like a little bit of like a hype thing, just kind of build up the thing before I come in and drop it. Let's see here. So why am I not getting any viewers on my videos? The one live thing that are subscribed to my channel. So when it comes to YouTube and really all of the social platforms, when we are publishing content, everything comes down to how people respond to what it is that we're doing. So for example, if you're getting 0 views on YouTube, then in that particular case, you need to go and look in your YouTube analytics, which is the statistics for your YouTube channel. We all have access to this. So when you are looking in your YouTube analytics, you want to look for impressions. If YouTube is giving you impressions, an impression, just so you know for clarity, is when YouTube shows your content to somebody on the platform. So if you are getting impressions on YouTube, but you're not getting any views, that means that YouTube is showing your content to people, but people are not clicking on your content. So because of that, you have to start thinking more about your titles and your thumbnails and about the topics that you're talking about and how you can kind of package things up in a better way to get people to click more. And then there's another side of it to where if you are getting some views, but then everything kind of stagnates real quick, then in that particular case, what could be happening is people might be clicking, but then once they hit the actual content, they're not sticking around long. And those things are like, if people aren't clicking, that is a negative satisfaction signal to YouTube. If people hit the video and they abandon the video quickly, that's also a negative satisfaction signal, which means that when that happens a lot, then they will just kind of suppress those videos. And it's not that they suppress them, they just prioritize other content, which essentially pushes, that other content down. So because of that, what I recommend that you do, Angela, is I recommend that you go into your YouTube analytics, you look at your click-through rate for each of the videos that you're publishing, you look at the impressions that you're getting, and you look at the audience retention that you're getting on the videos that you have. And as you start doing that, it's going to start painting a picture about why the videos that you're putting out currently, aren't getting views. But one thing that I can assure you, if you're not getting views currently, I know it can be frustrating, but everybody, when they start a YouTube channel, like what you're going through happens to everybody. So don't think like, oh no, they're showing me impressions, but nobody's clicking. Like what's going on? Like, just look at it like, okay, so the system is working, right? So that's not broken. So now what I have to do is I just have to learn how to connect with the people that I'm trying to reach through the, topics, titles, and thumbnails that I'm putting together. And then I have to learn how to deliver content in a way that people respond to, that they respond to just a little bit better. And the reason that I'm saying that is because I know it can be discouraging, when you're, putting all that hard work into what it is that you're doing and, and you're not getting, the views that you're, hoping to get from it. I went through that when I started. I'm sure everybody that's hanging out in the chat right now, went through the same thing. It's just a common thing when it comes to YouTube. And it happens even more if you've never done anything like this. Like if you've never actually had to go through the process of like, okay, how do I make something from scratch that somebody else will like? Like when we make it for ourselves, it's easier because we make it biased to the things that we like. But you have to think of it from the perspective of like, okay, this is my first time making content for other people to enjoy. This is my first time, this is my first experience making thumbnails and titles that are designed to entice people to click on my content, right? So it's just a learning curve thing, and just embrace that learning curve. Watch videos on making thumbnails, writing titles, making better videos, things like that, and then you'll be all right. Let's see here. So next up on our list, just looking for more questions. Again, if you have any questions, just make sure you put a Q in front of it so that we can identify it as a question here. So Charlie's channel says, can you live stream on a phone from a YouTube channel? Absolutely, you can. So you can do it using StreamYard, which is the YouTube channel that we're on, or you can do it through the YouTube app natively as well. So yeah, you can do it both. And there's also other apps like Prism, for example, that allows you to live stream too. But for mobile live streaming, there are subscriber requirements. So you have to make sure that you do meet those requirements if you are trying to do it on your phone. If not, you can get around it through using like Prism or something like that on your phone, or using StreamYard as well. So Vintage Potential says, how can I add a 15-second countdown that appears on the screen during a live sale? I'm tired of counting. So one thing that you can do is you can just take a GIF, an animated GIF, and you can add that to your stream. So let me show you something really quick. I got to switch to my branding here. Let's see here. Let me go to brand. So like one of the things that you can do with animated GIFs And just so you know, like StreamYard actually puts out like animated GIF packs from time to time. So make sure that you are in their Facebook group so you can see when they do that. I think you can also find some of it through their partner area in the StreamYard interface as well. But like if you see the little thing that I put up here in the corner right here, that's just like a little animated GIF, right? And then it just sits there and, has that thing to remind people to subscribe. You can also do more extreme versions of it to where this one right here, where it's like up on the screen and it's just bouncing back and forth between those. But what I recommend that you do is make something small, kind of, maybe this size up in the corner. And then when you do that and you play it, then what's going to happen is it's going to, it'll automatically, sit there and count down or do what it is that you need it to do, as long as you just make it that way. So what you can do is if you have Photoshop, then they're really easy to make in Photoshop. But if you don't have Photoshop, you can use a website called, what's it called? Photopea, and that's like PEA, I believe. And it's pretty much like a Photoshop clone, but it's all web-based, and you can make animated GIFs in that as well. And then that way, all you have to do is go into your branding in your StreamYard account, click on that, and then it has that 15-second countdown, and then you'll be good to go. But one thing you're going to have to do is, of course, time it right when you're actually making it. Let's see here. So how can I import audio files from my StreamYard live stream to my podcast Podbean service? So what you have to do is you have to actually download them from StreamYard. Just go into your settings, like in your StreamYard account. You can go into your videos area and you can download just the audio if you're just doing the audio. And then you would open up your Podbean service and then you would just upload it there, fill out all the information, and then you're good to go. So as you are live streaming on your StreamYard account, then in that case, they are, recording the stuff in the background, like all your content. So you can just, download that and you can upload it to one of those services. Keep in mind, if you weren't here earlier, this is going to get really easy for you in the very near future because YouTube is already introducing podcasting. But one of the things that they are doing is they're also going to be introducing an RSS feed. And then when they do that, then you're going to be able to use that RSS feed instead of the one you're currently using. And then YouTube will just auto update when you're doing those streams anyway. But if you're like, hey, I want to pull it down, clean it up a little bit, then you would still have to go through the process manually. Lean on Me says, what's an inexpensive way to make a voice sound better? It's a great question. So when it comes to making your voice sound better, an inexpensive way is if you're doing it for video, to where it's like, hey, I'm doing this like voiceover, or like I'm on camera and I'm having to use like my laptop speaker in order to get my audio in, because that's the only microphone I have right now. I'm having to use some low quality microphone or something like that. If it's pre-recorded content, then what you can do is you can actually upload that to Adobe Podcasts. I think it's like podcast.adobe, but if you hop on Google and look for Adobe Podcast Voice AI. And then what that site is going to do, you have to go through this little sign up process, and they tell you that you're on like some wait list or whatever, but you get instant approval to it. At least I did. So when you upload your audio there, what you download is mind blowing. I've done videos where I'm just like standing out in the street with traffic and I'm like recording my voice on my phone and I upload it there and it ends up sounding like a high quality podcast. It's ridiculous how good it is. So it's not perfect, but it's really good. So I recommend that if you're doing pre-recorded videos. But if you are trying to make everything sound better while you're live streaming, then in that particular case, a few quick tricks for you. One is any microphone that you're using, if you're using a microphone, get it as close to you as you possibly can. So, you can see, you'll see a lot of live streamers using microphones like this. And the reason for that is because it gets close, right? And it gives you that, especially if you're really close to it, kind of gives you that proximity effect, but it ensures that the sound waves that are coming out of your voice, that they're being picked up clearly so that as everything gets processed and sent up to the internet, everything sounds nice. So the very first thing that's free is just making sure that the microphone gets closer to you. The second thing is making sure that you are in an environment that doesn't have a lot of reverberation, or a lot of echoes. So for example, let's say you have, your camera, let's say you put your phone over there and you have like a microphone sitting next to the phone. Then in that particular case, while you're talking, you have sound waves coming out of your mouth and they're literally bouncing all over the room. So one of the things that you can do is you can put up curtains, you can put up blankets, you don't have to spend any money. You can grab stuff that you already have laying around. You can put up, a bunch of clothes, whatever, you just kind of hang things all over the place. And the idea is when the waves from your voice, the sound waves hit those things, then it kind of suppresses those, the bounce back of those, and it makes everything sound better. But again, if you can get it off the camera and get it closer, then it doesn't solve that problem, but it massively reduces that problem. So those two things by themselves can make a really big difference when it comes to making your audio sound better, and both of them are free. So I recommend that you give those a shot. Let's see here. So next up on the list, looking for any questions. Oh, so Creator Classroom, she actually teaches people about using Canva for like making content and all of that. She mentions that you can do it in Photopea, but you can also make your animations inside of Canva. So keep that in mind as well. Traveling Man Las Vegas says, can you please do a video on how to adjust the quality setting when going live on my phone? Always wants to broadcast in 4K instead of 1080, making my video quality bad. Thanks for all that you do. Yeah, we'll definitely keep that one in mind. Thank you for that. Let's see here. So I have a mic. Okay, so you do have a mic, but you don't like your voice. It's very country. Hey, look, here's the thing. Okay, so you have a microphone. As long as the audio quality is good, don't worry about what your voice sounds like. It's important to understand, like, if anybody here, in addition to them, if anybody here is weird about what your own voice sounds like, keep in mind that this is what other people hear when they talk to you. Like, the only reason it sounds weird is because you're used to hearing yourself inside of your brain or inside of your own head, and then now you get to hear it as other people hear it. So that's why it sounds weird right now. But when you can disconnect from the idea that it's supposed to sound like it sounds in your head, then you're going to start hearing yourself the way that everybody else hears it, and you're going to become a lot more comfortable with your voice, because you are the only person that hears it the way that you normally hear it. Everybody else hears it the way that you're hearing it on the playback. So because of that, just remember that your voice isn't, it's not bad. You're just experiencing it in a different way. And with you being country, tons of channels on YouTube also have that, country kind of twang with their voice, and some people absolutely love that. So I wouldn't look at that as a negative either. So like, embrace who you are, because when it comes to all this social media stuff, like those little nuances of yourself are the things that separate you from other content creators and that make you unique in what it is that you're doing. So because of that, instead of looking at your voice like it's a hindrance, look at it like it's an asset. Like, this is, how I speak and communicate is something that's going to help me stand out from all of the people that don't speak country, right? They're all like, they just don't have that like country twang or whatever. So, this is going to be one of those things that's going to help me stand out. When people come in and they start watching my content, they're going to instantly notice that I communicate a little bit differently than a lot of other people do. Let's see here. So next question that we have, why am I getting random echoing in the middle of my stream on my microphones? I'm using 2 USB mics plugged directly into the computer. It comes and goes. So first, if you are using StreamYard, make sure that you do have the echo cancellation turned on. That is a feature in the audio settings that you can turn on. In addition to that, if you have 2 mics happening, or that are pulling audio in, and they're both directly connected to the computer, and you don't have any like processing on them to keep them from like stepping on each other, so to speak, then it's possible that some of the audio coming from one is actually going into the other, and it's just kind of looping around that way. So because of that, one little thing that you can do that might be able to help is, if you are like, let's say you're sitting across the table from the person that you're doing your content with, then in that particular case, like here, right, I have like the Shure, and it's got it's kind of pointing this way. So if I was having that problem, I would make sure that both microphones are directly opposite of each other, so that the input part is 100% opposite from that other microphone. And then within that, I would also adjust the sensitivity on the mics as well to make sure that they can't pick up the other microphone. So maybe turn them down a little bit on the microphones themselves if you can, and then turn them up somewhere else so that you can still get the strong audio coming in. I know you can also do that in StreamYard in terms of turning the audio signal up, but then that way you have a strong audio signal coming in, but the actual microphones and what they're picking up, some of that might be suppressed, hopefully. Let's see here. Doug says he wants to make some animated GIFs now. Jerry, have a great week, man. Let's see here. So still looking here for, if you have a question, make sure you just put a Q. So Special Chronicle says, how do I enable closed captions for deaf and hard of hearing viewers during a live stream? So you do have captioning settings in once you go into YouTube. So anybody that's using StreamYard, after you schedule your live streams, if you're streaming to YouTube, after you schedule your live stream in StreamYard, go into YouTube, find the live in there in your content area, click into it. Or actually just go up to the create button at the top, click into create, go to live streams, and then click into the live stream that you scheduled. And then in there, you're going to see different settings. So there's different quality settings that allow and do not allow captioning. So because of that, you want to make sure that you are streaming at a quality that does allow YouTube to auto caption your videos for you. But you'll find it in those settings if you just click on the content area up there, or the create area. How do I delete an upcoming scheduled live? They automatically upload on my YouTube. So one thing you can do is you can actually unlist them if it's upcoming. But I mean, if you're scheduling an upcoming live stream, then you kind of want it to be available for people to kind of, remind themselves of and things like that. But one thing that you can do if you're like, hey, I just don't want to do that, is not schedule them, as far in advance, or schedule them as unlisted or not schedule them, but just have them marked as unlisted first, and then actually change it to scheduled and actually schedule it when you have, when it makes sense to actually have the public see that. But in terms of deleting them, if you want to delete it, then in that case, all you have to do is just go into YouTube and go into your settings there, and your content settings there, and you can actually go into the live stream and delete it that way. Let's see here. Again, if you're just joining the stream, if you have a question, just make sure you put a Q in front of your question so I know that it is for me. Special Chronicle says, I love using StreamYard. I started live streaming. Good. I'm glad that you are enjoying StreamYard. I love it too. I use it for this stream. I use it for my news stream to actually hold everything open and keep it all stable. I use it for my Nim and live stream. I use it for the monetization streams that I do. I use it when I stream on other YouTube channels with other people. Like, I use it for everything. Absolutely love it. Travel Discovery, my pleasure. Glad that you are enjoying the content. Okay. So, you pre-record at StreamYard too. Oh, nice. That's a cool, that's a cool feature as well. I'll do a lot of testing through that. Like if I'm testing a new setup or something like that, or if I get a new interface or microphone, or I have to do some cable management and I end up kind of unplugging things and hooking them back up and all that. I'll record as a way to test everything and make sure everything's coming through clear and, I don't have any weird issues happening. Okay, so it looks like we don't have any questions. So on that note, thank you everybody for hanging out. If you are not a StreamYard user, StreamYard is the best live streaming tool available right now. They make it easy for you to bring on guests. They make it easy to have graphics, to play music, all the things that you want to do in a live stream. They make it super easy, and they host everything in the cloud. So when you have technical problems with your computer or your electric or your internet, anything like that, it actually keeps your stream open, and then you can just join back in on your phone. We actually had last Saturday, I had to go in on my phone while my brother was restarting everything because we had a problem with the computer and it kind of locked everything up. So I was able to just come in on StreamYard on my phone, and then that gave him the opportunity to, just restart everything on his end. And then we just came right back in. It didn't even skip a beat. It was great. Maybe we skipped a small beat, but it wasn't a big one, but it was great. So yeah, it's a great tool. But you can try StreamYard for free for yourself at StreamYard.com, or of course, there's a link down in the description. This is your first time, seeing me. My name is Nick. I teach people about YouTube. All the different tools and resources that you use. I have live streams that I do on, where I do just 3 hours of Q&A, kind of like, you heard at the last part of this, those types of things. So make sure that you follow me as well. I've got links to me down in the description as well. Besides that, have an amazing rest of your week. And I will see you the last Tuesday of April as well. So if you enjoyed this, then make sure that you swing by for that as well. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you next time.